Hey, this is Don from Padlock Technologies again with another question slash warning. So, what is it? And you saw by the thumbnail probably. Don't brick your FTD messing around with flex configs. So, in my last couple of videos, I kind of gave you a tour about, I showed you the FMC managed firewalls and then I showed you FDM. And one of the things that I showed you in both was this thing called flex configs. Now, flex configs, once again, are configurations that you use to pretty much hack the FTD to do something that is not natively supported in the GUI. Before the 7X, you would have to do, if you wanted to do EIGRP, because it would only allow you to do OSPF and BGP when it first came out. And then people started complaining because, they were running EIGRP in their environments. They did not want to now switch everything to OSPF, or they didn't want to deal with redistributing between EIGRP and OSPF and the EIGRP. They didn't want to deal with that redistribution. So, now you can do that natively in the GUI. Before, though, you would have to use flex configs. And flex configs pretty much hack the device, hack the device to put commands that are not supported in the GUI. The problem with flex configs is there's no validation step with flex configs. So if you do flex configs and they're not right and the FTD takes it, it could completely brick the FTD. And I am telling you from personal experience, I've seen an FTD get bricked at least, I would say, 4 times with flex configs. And here's the worst part about bricking your FTD because of flex configs. Cisco will not support it. If you say, or if you tell them, hey, I did this flex config and it bricked my device, the only other option you have is to reimage. And depending on, this is where redundancy comes in. Now, if you got, HA, you can get away with it. You may not lose your job because, hey, I just got to reimage this box, add it back to HA, and then everything will be fine. You guys are run on the secondary while we're doing this. Now, if it's a single unit, that's a resume changing event. Because if you bricked your FTD and that's the only FTD that supports your internet function and RA VPN functions, because usually people tie it into one when they only have one box, yeah, you're down. You're pretty much down until you get that back up. And the re-imaging process is not something that's really simple. Now you got to get your own TFTP server. You got to configure the Ramon, and then you got to download the image, install the image, go through the management process, and hopefully you have a backup and restore that's not local to the FMC, because if that's ever corrupted, you're done. But hopefully you got some offshore backup of your configurations, and then you could just reapply those or restore those configurations. If you don't have that, you're building it from scratch, so that's more time. And depending on what your RTO is, recovery time objective, and your recovery point objectives are, which is your RPO. Uh, Depending on what that is, now your RPO is really based on how many backups. Let me back up a little bit. So, how much data can you lose, right? So, if you're depending on your frequency of changes, if you're backing up your FTD configurations once a day, then if something happens, say on Tuesday, you can go back to Monday, right? Because you haven't really backed up. Now, recovery time objective is how long it's going to take you to get this box back up and running in a certain amount of time. And I can tell you right now, if you break your FTD and have to reimage it, RTO goes out the window. You're down, all right? And this is where, if you're doing proper network design, you're going to have some resilience in there by increasing redundancy, right? Making sure it's available by having 2 boxes. Now, does this matter? Does this matter that much if you're clustering? Not really. You can cluster up to 8 devices, so if one goes down, you have 7 more, right? So that's not really gonna hurt you too bad. But if you have one box and you mess it up, it's over for you, buddy. It's just not happening. So don't go tinkering around with FlexConfigs. Most of the stuff that you can do in the GUI is basically all you need. The FlexConfig stuff is for things like, hey, you want to do you have some certain value in your REVPN group policy because you are doing some type of timeout because you're sending it to some external server and it takes more than the traditional timeout value for it to come back. You may have to do FlexConfig for that. Or and I'll show you in the next couple videos when I'm going to show you VPN load balancing. You do have to do a FlexConfig for that because you have to statically assign the FQDN values per box. So you have to do that. And you can only do that with FlexConfig. So again, it's Don from Padlock Technologies. Be careful when messing around with FlexConfig because you don't want to have a brick on your hand in the worst case scenario when you really need your firewalls to be up. Don't forget to share, comment, like, and subscribe. Keep sending me those questions. I'll keep giving you answers. Hopefully this video was informative. Thank you and have a nice day.